propulsion continues to be normal.
Our chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight outside SC off. Bring in SC off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
Hello and welcome to NSF Live, that weekly show where we go over all the space stuff that's happening this week. I'm your host, Stephen Marr. I'm a photographer and about it for NASASpaceflight. And with me today on, let's see what side I'm pointing to. Okay, on this side we have SpaceX fleet, Gavin Cornwell.
Howdy. How you doing?
Good. And over here we have writer and streamer and general wrangler of people to do these said streams, Mr. Thomas Burghardt.
How's it going, guys? Good to be on.
Good. And first of all, I want to thank everybody for watching right now and being in chat. Hit us with your questions. If you've got a burning question, tag at NASASpaceflight, and we will see it on our nifty little panel here. And yeah, let's get into it. But before we actually get into it, I owe one of our listeners or viewers an unboxing, because the very first time I was ever on NSF Live, afterward, one of our generous viewers sent me something, and I saw that Jack had something, and he unboxed it on the show. So I said, well, how about I unbox this the next time I'm on NSF Live? Well, some of you may know that I was on a few weeks ago, and I forgot all about it. So, Andre, I'm very sorry, but I'm going to unbox right now. I don't know what's in this box. All I know is that when I picked it up, I forgot how heavy it was. Like, really, I'm like legit straining to do this. So here goes. This has been, let's see, he sent this, like, I was looking at the chat between me and him, and it was February 6th, I believe, of this year. So we're talking like 5 months.
And for the record, none of us know what this is, so we're all going to be just as surprised as Steven is.
And I asked him, I sent him a DM on Discord. I said, hey, we just want to make sure it's not something that's, inappropriate to bring up on the stream. And it is not. It is space shuttle related. Look at this.
Oh, there you go.
What is this? Developing an is this a oh, it's a book. It is a book. Oh, holy moly. It is a 3-volume like encyclopedia thing. Wow.
Nice.
Holy, oh man. Yeah, so yeah, setting the stage, technical description, the flight campaign from 1972 to 2013. Holy moly. Wow. Andre, if you're watching, thank you. Holy moly. I can't believe this. I was like, this got to be a book, but it feels too big to be a book. It's like a mini encyclopedia. Wow. Well, I know the Chris's will be excited about this. Forward by Story Musgrave. He is literally one of my favorites to listen to, like talk about the history of the space program and stuff. If you've ever seen the docu-series When We Left Earth, he's one of the prime people on there, and just a joy to listen to. But yeah, Andre, thank you very much. It's been a long time coming. I'm glad I finally got to open it. It's been sitting here at the foot of my bed since February, and thank you very much. Yeah, hey, cool, thank you. So let's get rolling. You guys know there's a lot of stuff going on this week. I feel like every week we're like, man, it's a big week for space.
Yeah, we have trouble picking out the thumbnail topics sometimes, because we're like, all right, we can really fit like 2 big pictures in the thumbnail, and there's like 5 things to talk about any given week. Right.
Well, the first thing we're going to talk about is sort of in Gavin's wheelhouse. He was sort of covering it for everybody. The positioning and progress made by, of course, I Still Love You on the trip over to the West Coast. I think we have some videos. We got some pictures and stuff. Oh yeah, this is the arrival. Yeah, Gavin was there to. He gave us. I know we were getting daily updates. So, and what was your system there? You just had a reminder every day to check the
Yeah,
position.
sort of when it's getting to like mid-afternoon time, just check, see what their progress is for the day. They were moving a lot faster than I thought they would. Obviously, I've only seen that journey before when they've had a slow tugboat. This ship moves so much quicker. It was just zooming up the coastline. So I was impressed by that. We've got great footage here from Pauline and Jack, who were out there in the field on the 6th and the 8th of July to capture Mighty Servant 1, and of course still love you coming in to the port of Long Beach. Fantastic shots there. You can just see literally how they stuck the drone ship on top of Mighty Servant 1 and just sailed all the way to the port of Long Beach. It just looks really strange. A ship on a ship.
Yeah, I think the meme was I'm on a boat. Hey, I don't know if y'all talked about it the last time you were on NSF Live, because I want to say it sort of coincided with this trip, but maybe some people don't know how Mighty Servant 1 works or what a semi-submersible ship is.
Yeah, great question. So essentially, clues in the name semi-submersible, it submerges itself underwater to an extent without completely sinking, just in a controlled fashion. So essentially, inside of Mighty Servant 1, it is got ballast tanks that are either filled with water and air. As you displace the water and air in a controlled fashion, you can make the whole ship sink down into the water or rise back up at a controlled desire. Now, the advantage of doing that is if you sink it into the water, you can then float the thing you want to carry on that ship straight onto it without need for like a crane or something preposterous. So they sink Mighty Servant 1 down into the water. Some tugboats push, of course, I still love you, into position on it. It rises up from the water. They secure it down or weld it to the deck, and then they just sail to their destination. And then the process is repeated in reverse. When you get to the other end, it sinks down to the water to a point in a controlled fashion. They release all the welding and straps, and it sails straight off. It's a very unusual thing to see, but yeah.
Yeah, and then we actually have footage. Well, here's a time lapse. Is this? I don't know if this is the part where Mighty Servant 1 starts sinking into the water, or is it?
No, what we're looking at here, this was on the 6th after they arrived. So you can see there's a small boat in the bottom right corner, just loading some crew around. I think those were SpaceX personnel coming to check it out, because that was certainly a SpaceX owned fast approach boat that we just saw wiggling on screen. So this was them arriving on the 6th, going to check it out. They then spent the 6th and the 7th just removing all of the welding and security like that, and then it dived underwater overnight into the 8th of July, and then they took it off first thing in the morning on the 8th.
Yeah. How long does it take for it to sink and rise back up? Do we know?
We don't actually know, because we didn't see them do it when they loaded it up in the Bahamas, and then they sneakily did it in reverse overnight in LA. So I don't think anyone actually saw it. Probably only a couple of hours, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
But I can't say for sure.
Yeah, I saw the time lapse of it, but it's in a time lapse you don't know for sure like how much it's being sped up or whatever. But yeah, it seemed like maybe a couple hours is reasonable. It was really cool to see like as Mighty Servant 1's getting down, and then you start to see, of course, I Still Love You sort of begin to sort of float on its own, but I guess it's like it's still tied off at each end or something to keep it from floating too much and bumping, because it's the ocean. I mean, I know they're behind like a barrier wall, right? But there's still waves in there.
Yeah, exactly. In some wide shots we just saw there's two towers on the stern of Mighty Servant 1, and there was some guy ropes between the drone ship and those towers that basically, once it's submerged, still holds the drone ship in position while it floats. It doesn't just drift away, held in a controlled fashion.
Right. Yeah, this aerial footage is just incredible. Look at this.
This is what Falcon 9 sees on the way down, kind of, sort of ish.
Yeah. And okay, so now they've got it berthed at the port of Long Beach. right? And we don't really have a good idea of when it's going to be used. We know that it'll probably be a Starlink mission, right? The next time it'll be used.
Probably. There's other missions that are also on the Vandenberg manifest for SpaceX. They've got the one big one that comes to mind is the DART mission for NASA, the double asteroid redirect test. But that's been slipping a little bit and will probably end up being after the first polar Starlink flights out of Vandenberg. So probably whenever they are ready for a Starlink mission to get off the ground there, is when we'll see, of course, I Still Love You make its first West Coast recoveries.
And am I remembering right that our other 10th flight booster was sent out there for that? I know there was a booster that made the trek. Am I thinking of the right one? It was either, now I have to remember which. 1051 was the 10th flight, and 1049 is still waiting for its 10th flight. Is that right?
I can pull up my notes and actually figure that out. I do remember we saw one booster go west,
Yeah.
and we're like, okay, cool, that'll be the booster that supports like Starlink stuff. And then another one showed up, and possibly even I know there were multiple that ended up actually heading west. Oh gosh, I have to actually count on my notes. 51 had 10 flights, 49 is only 9 so far.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, and Michael's trying to communicate to us in the back channel. Yeah,
And
he said it's 1049. So 1049 went west. So Vandenberg folks, any of y'all out west that miss seeing launches out there, you'll get to see Falcon 9 fly for the 10th time coming up sometime. We don't have a date or anything like that. But yeah, and then you'll get to see, of course, I Still Love You in action over there, coming in, hopefully with a successfully landed booster. But in the same vein, there was a certain other drone ship that we've been waiting for a long time, a very long time. Gavin, you figured out when it was that we first heard about it and how long we've been
Gavin
waiting.
knows exactly how long it's been.
1,243 days of my life.
Well, take it away. What are we looking at here?
This is the first official footage we've seen of a shortfall of Gravitas drone ship in all of its glory, and it looks like an absolute tank.
Yes.
Yeah, this footage came up from Elon yesterday afternoon. Essentially, what we can see is the core barge. There's a bit of a preview on the bottom there, Marmac 302, and it is self-propelling itself through a sea trial in the Gulf of Mexico. It is brand new. All that paint is completely fresh. Expect it to be destroyed immediately on the first landing. It is it's got similarities to Just Read the Instructions, but overall it is mostly a fresh new design. So to briefly take you through
as we're seeing this flyover, do you want to try to go over what you're looking at there, or what you think it is?
Yeah, I don't have the Dassault pen, but I can try and bodge something together. Essentially, on each corner we've got 4 thrusters. These are the same type of thrusters as Just Read the Instructions has. Thank you for that. There's a Starlink terminal. So it already has Starlink terminals pre-installed. What is the key difference about the new drone ship compared to, of course, I Still Love You and Just Read the Instructions, that all of the ground support equipment is all placed on the stern. So we can see in this footage here, all of the generators, the electrical, the communications, the nitrogen tank, it's all on the stern of the drone ship. And the bow is completely clear, apart from one line of what we think is probably like blast shielding or something like that. That is completely different. I've seen some people query why that might be the case. And what we think, and what I agree with, is as you move your drone ship along in the water, depending on how your waves go, you're going to have waves crashing up against the bow of the ship. So if you've ever seen a photo of Just Read the Instructions, and of course I Still Love You, the GSE on the front of the drone ship, it's always really, really rusty. It's getting soaked with salt water. So what I think they've done in this design is they've moved all of the GSE to the stern, where it's not going to be splashed by corrosive salt water as much.
Oh.
And that's how they've decided to roll.
I thought it was more of like a weight thing.
Well, possibly. That's kind of my thing. We don't know for sure. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Another key difference, and one that's really noticeable that makes this drone ship look so much cooler than just reading the instructions, is the wings are a completely different design. It almost looks like a circle around the SpaceX logo. So
Yeah.
if you've ever seen, of course I Still Love You and just read the instructions, the wings are rectangle bolt-ons on each side, but these ones are sort of tapered
Yeah.
on the ends. It makes a really cool looking semicircle.
It's really sleek.
Yeah, it really
it's
looks
like
slick.
they've gotten their confidence down, like, because let's be honest, they usually have at least 3 legs within that inner circle, the yellow circle there. So they don't usually land, anywhere near the corners. So to cut those off, I don't know if there's like a practical reason or if it's just aesthetic. Do either of you have any opinions on that?
All I know is that in the early days of drone ship landings, there were times where they got pretty close to the corners, but over time they've brought that precision down. And yeah, now when it's even like slightly off center, we all go, "Oh, SpaceX doesn't know what they're doing. They can't even hit the middle anymore."
Right.
Because of course we're all joking. The reliability of the actual landing accuracy has become so much better.
Yeah. What's the number? What
Even
are
if
we
they
at
chop
now?
those corners off for pure aesthetic, I have exactly 0 problems with it because it looks great and they clearly don't need it.
Right. And did you guys see, as the drone, the little, it's a little like quadcopter or something flying around it? I was trying to find where Finn Falget was. Because
Yeah.
I know obviously it's nearby. It towed it out there into the Gulf, but could you see it anywhere on the horizon? I saw some kind of structure. Maybe it was like a oil rig or
I
something.
saw it looked like there was an oil rig in the area or something,
Yeah.
but Finn does not make an appearance in this video, I don't think.
Yeah, that was surprising because they take a flight all the way around it. They show all the angles, 360, and I don't know. Did they just tell Finn, "Hey, bugger off"?
Yeah, I'm glad I'm glad I'm not the only one that went frame by frame, just scouring the ocean for trying to find it. But yeah, if you look around, I can't see it. There is a big oil rig in the background. They did this trial in the Gulf of Mexico. There's rigs everywhere.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, as we pan around, I can't see it anywhere. So maybe they literally just said, "We're going to shoot this video. Can you go somewhere else?"
Yeah,
Possible.
go hit the horizon.
Yeah.
But that's the other big change with this ship, right? Is that once you get it out of port or wherever you're stationed, the tug can disconnect and the drone ship's kind of on its own to go complete the mission, right?
Well, that's, I think, what we're gonna find out, right?
Yeah, it appears to be running in full autonomy in this trial. Elon confirmed it to Michael Baylor on Twitter last night that is the exact case. How it works in practice is another question. There's probably a lot of red tape to go through with the Coast Guard and other bits and pieces to allow a barge to just sail out on its own. So we'll have to wait and see what happens in an operational environment. I
And right here,
imagine.
in fact, Michael Baylor, the man behind the curtain, was the one that asked the question: "Will Asoc be fully automated? No tugboat required." And Elon responded, "Yes." Now, that's not very specific.
Yeah, very detailed
know,
answer as usual.
It's like, well, yes, it is. It's piloting itself right now, but we're all like, well, will there be a tugboat going all the way out there? Probably, like, I don't know if it's like local regulations or whatever. I think you still need a tugboat to get it out of the port. But then will they just wave goodbye and the drone ship will go out on its own and wait for it to return with a booster? I'm thinking they will need to have at least a support ship with it because they need to secure the booster with the octograbber, unless they decide to go with fully remote, control the octograbber from far away, and maybe that. But I would think that they would still need to have somebody out there, just in case, sort of thing.
Yeah, my thinking is the idea behind Octograbber is that you don't need to board people onto the drone ship to help secure it because Octograbber does that for you and that's controlled remotely. But I'm thinking in the contingency of a slightly off nominal landing where if the booster's sitting low, Octograbber can't get out, Octograbber has a malfunction of some kind or something like that. I would imagine there's still going to be a support vessel out there with recovery techs to observe
weld
the
it out.
recovery and make sure it's all okay.
Yeah.
Even if the primary plan is for a pretty hands-off recovery now that everything's so automated.
Yeah.
And I would imagine the tug situation will be probably fairly different, because what if, I don't know, what if a shortfall gravitas has an engine failure? I guess you can dispatch a tug to go get it rather than it's sitting out there with it. I don't know exactly how that works, but I would imagine there's not going to be zero recovery personnel out with the drone ship, even if it's automated now, like it is now.
Right. And let's see, we had some questions. Don't worry, chat. We're not ignoring you. Let's see. Johan said, "Are you more excited about Of Course I Still Love You or Shortfall of Gravitas?"
Well, I'm a little biased because here on the East Coast, we've said our goodbyes to Of Course I Still Love You, so I'm excited about the new drone ship that we're going to get over here in Florida, but I know our friends out in California, Michael and Jack and Pauline, are all very excited for a drone ship to be on their coast again.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, new is always exciting, and knowing that there's the map right there. So Julia and Gavin both have been keeping track of Finn's position, because of course, Shortfall of Gravitas is not going to pilot itself all the way back to Port Canaveral. It is going to be tugged by the tug Finn Falgout, or Falgout. I can
Falgout. It's Falgout, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, it's Falgout. Oh, I haven't seen it.
Silent on the end. Falgout.
Falgout.
Finn Falgout.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there you can see the progress. Gavin got a screenshot of this, like really right before we started. So this screenshot might be like 20-30 minutes old. So you can see it's just kind of making its way across the Gulf. We have an ETA. I can't read it on there. When did you say the ETA was?
Ship is self-reporting its arrival time at Port Canaveral as 6 p.m. on the 15th, which is Thursday next week.
Okay.
So if they keep to that, we'll be seeing them next Thursday, but we'll see if that ETA holds.
Yeah. So Fleet Chasers convene at Port Canaveral around that time. I'm sure everyone will be watching Julia and Gavin and seeing just when this is going to happen. Of course, as they come up the east coast of Florida, a lot of times you don't necessarily need to have that satellite package. It'll pick up on those ground stations, and we'll have some footage and some photos, and regardless of when it comes in, we're gonna have everything you could want right here on NASA Spaceflight. Let's see. I think there was another. How do you feel about this? Is from Keith. How do you feel about Elon saying that the Asoc? We're calling it Asoc now, y'all. A shortfall of gravitas. Asoc won't need a tug to get to the landing zone. I guess we did kind of we kind of went over that. We're not really sure if there won't be a tug at all. Jim Cabot says, "Do we know the top speed?" I don't think so, because it's not showing up on like marine traffic or anything yet, right?
No, we don't. We won't know that till we can see what speed Finn was going during the trial, but it wasn't connected, so we don't really have any useful information about how fast Asoc can move on its own.
See, RDHZ says, "Doesn't the drone barge need AIS when it's running fully autonomous?" AIS, Gavin, take it away. What's that?
I believe that's.
I don't actually know off the top of my head. It's autonomous something or another. It's the technology that is used to keep track of boats. It reports position, speed, direction, and stuff like that. So essentially, if you do a Google search for like vessel tracking, you'll be presented with a big map full of ship icons. It's essentially that. So what the question is will this new drone ship have its own tracker on those maps? Because of course, I Still Love You and Just Read the Instructions are classified as barges with their own tug. They don't have these trackers. So what we're wondering is if they send Asoc out on its own, will it get a tracker? I hope so. Oh, it's going to be a nightmare for me to keep on where it is. But again, we're kind of pushing into new technology here, grey areas. So I don't know. That is a question the Coast Guard that certify a drone ship to be autonomous. So it's a case of waiting and finding out what happens.
And I went ahead and threw up that super chat from Rough Riders Show. We kind of touched on it already with whether or not Asoc will move to Florida on its own, but I just wanted to throw that up there because I wanted to thank you for your super chat, $10, appreciate it. Let's see, I don't see. Oh, I do see. See, Dougal said, can Asoc theoretically support a Starship landing?
Yeah, we get this question a lot because a lot of people have been looking at that first Starship orbital launch plan and seeing that booster is going to come down off the coast of Boca Chica and a Starship's going to come down off the coast of Hawaii. And people are asking, well, SpaceX doesn't really like to expend things, so what are they going to land on? Well, unfortunately, in this case, they're probably just going to expend them. And these drone ships that they've got right now are not. It's not so much a size problem. If you had a crane and could delicately place an empty Starship on the drone ship, it would probably fit. Or a Starship on the drone ship, not the other way around. My apologies. It would probably fit, but when you're landing a Starship, it would actually probably be a weight problem, and I think that rules out any possibility of a Starship landing on a drone ship. But that's what those oil rigs are for. The converted oil rigs are going to be for launch and landing operations with Starship and things. So, but for now, these drone ships are limited to Falcons. Yeah.
So what you're saying is we'll never see a shortfall of gravitas flying on a Starship?
Unless we get a really scaled up Starship, Elon has said, they want to double the diameter of Starship someday. Maybe they go beyond that. Someday there might be one big enough to put a shortfall of gravitas on board as a test payload, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
And then land it on the moon, and then that could just be their landing pad.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Prefab landing pad.
And then let's see. This will be our last question about drone ships and such till we move on. Jesme 2006 says, "Does it have an octograbber?"
Yes, it does have an octograbber. It's not on board at the moment. It's been sighted at Port Canaveral in Florida. It's sitting in a tent. I imagine, and what I'm really hoping for is after it arrives, we get to see some really fantastic shots of them creating it on board. Because I really want to see what an octograbber robot looks like on the underneath when they lift it.
Yeah, everybody,
we'll
make
see.
sure you keep your eyes on Fleet Cam, and if there's something exciting happening, we'll try to let you know. But keep your eyes on Fleet Cam, because if a crane starts lifting an octograbber onto shortfall of gravitas, then you'll be able to see it right there.
Fleet Cam is on the case for sure.
Yeah. Okay, now what else is big? Let's see. Apparently, there are some people gonna fly in space tomorrow.
Tomorrow, allegedly, yeah. We can talk about this. You've probably seen, if you're on space Twitter, you've been completely unable to avoid this conversation for the last 24 hours or so. Although honestly, it's been over the last couple of weeks, but. Coming up tomorrow is a Virgin Galactic spaceflight again out of Spaceport America in New Mexico with Spaceship Two. This particular flight is pretty noteworthy because founder Richard Branson will be one of 4 mission specialists on board, in addition to the 2 crew members, the 2 pilots. And this is a noteworthy and relatively late addition to the crew manifest, or rather a change to the crew manifest. For the bigger picture, go back a couple weeks, Virgin Galactic's main competitor, Blue Origin, with their New Shepard vehicle, announced that Jeff Bezos would be flying on New Shepard 16, which is the next New Shepard flight scheduled for July 20th. And that is the first time they're going to put humans on board New Shepard. It is at all, not even, obviously, Virgin Galactic has been flying people to space on Spaceship Two for a little bit, but they haven't been passengers. They've been test pilots and test mission specialists and things like that. But now that New Shepard has done its entire test campaign uncrewed, the first crewed flight will include founder Jeff Bezos. And again, that's on the 20th. Shortly after that announcement, rumors started coming out that Virgin Galactic was looking at the possibility of switching their crew assignments for the last couple test flights for Spaceship Two, which always flies crews. It's a piloted vehicle. It does not do uncrewed test flights. And it came out that Richard Branson would in fact be on the next flight, which just so happens to be tomorrow, before Jeff Bezos' flight. So now there's this whole which suborbital company is going to fly their founder to space first. there are a couple considerations to remember in this conversation. Virgin Galactic has already flown people on Spaceship Two 3 times. This vehicle goes up to about 90 kilometers in altitude, which is above the American definition of space at around 80 kilometers, and is also above what people have generally considered to be the real Kármán line, or the actual boundary of space by the Kármán definition, when you basically transition from flying like a plane to flying like a satellite at those altitudes. So, for all intents and purposes, Virgin Galactic emphasized that these do count as spaceflight. There is a different definition at 100 kilometers that Blue Origin will definitely like to use, because their vehicle flies a bit higher and crosses that boundary, now what we refer to as the Kármán line. So there's debates to be had there. Blue Origin put out this graphic that I know we're going to talk about here, because it's
there was
been
a
the
little
subject
bit of
of
controversy yesterday in the
there's
world,
been controversy.
in the space
There's
Twitter
been
world.
never-ending memes about this infographic.
I think I've seen at least 3 knockoff memes. Like two,
They're in
at
the
least 2 of them
dozens
by
of
people I
these
know.
knockoffs by this point, I think. People replacing what they're comparing, what the criteria are, and yeah. Blue Origin not doing themselves any favors with this graphic, if I'm being completely honest. This is, I mean, to be fair, we'll go look at this, and I'll point out most of these are fair points. The first line is that Kármán line thing. New Shepard goes above 100 kilometers, barely, but above 100 kilometers before coming back down. These are both suborbital vehicles. They do not achieve orbit, so the flights only last 10 minutes total from liftoff to landing about. But Virgin Galactic does not reach quite that altitude. They also referred to Spaceship Two as a high-altitude airplane, which most people would call Spaceship Two a space plane. If you're calling Spaceship Two a high-altitude airplane, what are you calling, like, the space shuttle and like the X-15? Are those also just high-altitude airplanes? There's some weird. I mean, that's subjective. They're also poking fun at the fact that Spaceship Two has airplane-sized windows, whatever that means. Don't think there's a standard size for airplane-sized windows, but sure. The escape system point is also interesting. Yes, New Shepard has an in-flight abort system that has been tested a couple times, worked perfectly. Sort of the traditional launch escape system, but Spaceship Two has actually demonstrated a real in-flight abort in the fact that they had a almost immediate shutdown a couple flights ago of the Spaceship Two motor after release from the carrier aircraft, and then it glided safely to a landing. So they also have an abort system.
They have abort options, right?
Right, exactly. And
it's not traditional, but
yeah, so it's a different abort scenario, and some would argue, obviously, if there's an uncontained failure with the actual motor itself, whether it's the motor on Spaceship Two or the escape system on the New Shepard capsule, you're going to have a bad day. But barring that specific failure mode, everything else is kind of covered. If you have a failure with the New Shepard booster, the escape system activates. And if you have a contained failure of the engine on Spaceship Two, it can glide safely to a landing. I'm not sure it's appropriate to claim that one system is more safe than the other because of the difference in the abort contingencies. There could be some in-depth engineering analysis, I assume. Also, this ozone layer impact is interesting. New Shepard fires a liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen ender, so yes, the byproducts are basically water vapor. And the hybrid rocket motor that powers New Shepard is not that. The impacts of a few Spaceship Two flights a year are pretty negligible compared to almost any other source of ozone layer impacts, but sure. And then they mentioned their flight history, which I would turn around and say those 3 flights above 80 kilometers have all had people on board, and the 15 flights for New Shepard have not. So you can go through all of those points and point out that, yeah, obviously this is going to be tailored towards Blue Origin because their PR department's job is not to be objective, it's to make them look the best that they can.
Yeah,
but some of these claims are a little misleading. Yeah, exactly.
It's like it's just like Coke and Pepsi. You know, they I don't think they don't do it as much as they used to, but they're used to, you know, if you've ever heard of the Pepsi challenge, take the Pepsi challenge. That was what that was getting people to compare, you know, and then they thought that no matter what, that more people would come out, you know, preferring Pepsi or whatever. Like this is competition. And so, you know, at first glance, I was like, you know, I guess it seems about right. You know, it seems odd that, you know, they're tweeting that out like, 2 days before Virgin Galactic's
Yeah.
flight, but it is.
But not, we're not going to pretend we don't know exactly why.
Yeah, exactly. But it is worth noting. Blue Origin has tweeted just let's see, 10 minutes ago, Michael, if you want to throw that up there.
Hot off the press.
Oh wait, oh no, this is the Instagram thing. Oh, I see. You said you wanted to go
The
to
Twitter
the Instagram
post. The Twitter post links to the Instagram post.
Okay.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, let's see. What are we looking at here?
That's
this
Jeff
up so I can
Bezos
see.
wishing Branson a successful and safe flight tomorrow and the best of luck.
Oh, okay.
And then
With
Blue
Which
a
is
Origin,
great
picture?
to hear.
A picture of Richard Branson. All right.
Yes.
Well,
Blue
good.
Origin on Twitter followed that up with wishing you a great flight tomorrow at Virgin Galactic.
Okay. Well, that's good.
And
That's
good
more
to
of the
see.
spirit that we like to see. With support.
Yeah.
Spaceflight companies supporting each other. Obviously, they're competing, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
Do
I
we
believe
know? Let's
also-
see. Go ahead.
It was worth mentioning that a certain other prominent space CEO was also wishing the best of luck to Virgin Galactic in their flight. Actually,
Right.
apparently, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk will actually be in attendance tomorrow. It actually came up in that Twitter thread. I was not aware of this. Apparently, Musk is a Virgin Galactic ticket holder, or at least was at one point.
Really?
He was a very old interview with him talking about, and he gave a decent sized answer about the technological differences between going to orbit and going on a suborbital trajectory, and pointing out that SpaceX does, however many times more energy required to get humans to low Earth orbit versus a suborbital flight like Virgin Galactic. But at the end of that interview, pointed out that what Virgin Galactic does is also great, and he supports them and even has a ticket. He was just pointing out that it is a fundamentally different system than the SpaceX system,
Right.
which is
And
interesting to hear from them.
Yeah, that's yeah. You got guys like Tory Bruno. He always just shows the utmost class, and he's always super supportive and stuff. And some of the others, they kind of butt heads some, but it's always nice as a space fan. It's nice to see when they're just being super friendly to each other. And right here we're looking at one of Jack Byers' photos this is from the last test, right? This was from like a month and a half ago, something like that.
Yeah, it was back in May. This was the most recent flight prior to the one coming up this weekend. Another crewed space flight, a test flight, the third one that they've ever done, and it was very successful. And Jack was out there in New Mexico. He is also out there in New Mexico right now for getting ready to cover tomorrow's flight. So NASASpaceflight will be bringing live coverage of that mission tomorrow.
That's right. Yeah. So keep your eyes peeled. Hey, make sure this is a good time to say, make sure you are subscribed and hit that bell so you know when we're going live. I don't know what time we're going live in the morning. Do you know, Thomas?
It will be bright and early.
Bright and
Stay
early.
tuned.
Yes. Yeah. Like talking maybe sunrise or earlier, perhaps. But Jack is already on the scene. So we'll have views coming from Jack. I hope they fly tomorrow. It's always this thing. It's like, yes, we are flying on July 11th, and probably half the world just takes for granted that it's happening definitely on the 11th. And in the spaceflight community, we know
that's not how that works.
Yeah, what's the weather like? How are all the technical boxes checked? And So hopefully we get to see a flight tomorrow. I think it's going to be really exciting if we do. And whenever it happens, even if it happens after the 20th, it'll still be exciting.
Yes, for sure.
All right. Let's see. Were there? Yeah, we do have a couple questions. Adela Barrigi says, "Is that difficult for Virgin Galactic to go the extra 8 to 10 kilometers?" That is a really good question. And Thomas, I think you're just a guy for that one.
Yeah. Right now, the system has not shown, the current system that they're flying has not shown the ability to squeak out an extra 10 kilometers, which is not super easy. Ways they could do that is either change the engine to something that operates more efficiently, add more fuel capacity, or make the vehicle lighter so that the same fuel capacity can translate to more energy. Virgin Galactic is currently developing a vehicle called Spaceship 3. It looks almost identical to Spaceship Two. However, it's supposed to have various performance and reusability improvements and stuff like that. They have not said what those performance improvements are. If I had to guess, they're going to try and make it above 100 kilometers. Once upon a time, Virgin Galactic's system was supposed to cross the 100 kilometer Kármán line and remove any sort of asterisk you may want to put onto their system, however warranted that is or not. Of course, even though the current system can't do that, it seems that that is something that they may still be aiming for with this new vehicle. You can see it looks almost looks like it might be stainless steel versus whatever alloys they're working with now. It's got sort of that Starship chromey look, you know.
It looks sleeker, but I don't know if that's just the chrome look that kind of tricks the eye into thinking that it's like a little bit sleeker than the current design.
It's also a render, to be very clear. That's not a photo yet, so we don't know exactly what it will in reality look like. But it is possible that this vehicle could be a step towards inching. Oh my goodness, what was the word I was trying to say? Bringing out some more kilometers of altitude with the system. But don't know if that's
eking out.
Eking is the word I was looking for. Thank you, Stephen. But I don't know if that's what they're aiming for here.
I've seen a few people kind of speculate, well, you know, those previous flights were all test flights. Maybe they have a little bit more performance in there, and maybe they've cut the engine sooner. Maybe they can go that extra 8 or 10 kilometers. But they're going to have 4 extra people on board this time too,
right.
And that ain't nothing. You know, you figure the average adult, what, 200 pounds? What's that in kilos? You know, and then times 4. You know, so even if they had a little bit extra performance that they could utilize, I don't know if that makes enough of a difference. You know, that they'd be able to get up and over that 100-kilometer mark.
Yeah, I don't believe that they have spare performance. I believe all of the burns on their spaceflights are just burns to depletion. However, also, even if there was performance margin, there's another consideration to be had, where if you add a couple extra seconds of burn time and get to that higher altitude, that also means you're going to be coming back down into the atmosphere with a little bit more energy, and there might be safety limits as to how fast they can come back and hit the atmosphere again as far as reentry goes. Obviously, it's not an orbital reentry. It doesn't even really have a dedicated heat shield per se. It's just the thermal loads that the entire body can take. But that is another consideration. It's not as easy as, just burn the engine a little longer. That could cause problems on reentry, so you have to consider the entire flight profile when you do something like that.
Yeah, I could see that being a misconception, that because it never goes through a fiery phase like Dragon or like Shuttle did, then that means that there's no heating. There's still considerable heating that they would have to think about. And Keith wanted to make sure that we did not forget that one of the significant, and we'll talk about the New Shepard flight probably in next week's episode, because that'll be before the 20th. But let's not forget who's flying on New Shepard, who Jeff Bezos invited to go with him. Wally Funk
of the Mercury 13, yes, which is a great thing, and good to see her go to space, and a good inspiring message that will hopefully get a lot of people to pay attention to the flight for the right reasons and kind of get excited about spaceflight that way. That's super cool to see. We're also still standing by to see who that person who won the $28 million seat to be like the first paying passenger. They have not revealed that person yet, so we're waiting for that too. But yeah,
some people think it's Elon.
or I like the theory that it's Tori asking where his engines are, but
he's gonna wait till he gets up in space. Oh, that's beautiful. Let's see. Is there anything else to add about this one before we move on? Should we talk about shiny rockets?
Shiny rockets, that's always fun. Or I could go on a rant about how the Jeff Bezos Richard Branson thing is dumb, but we probably want to skip that if we can. There's more time for that next week anyway. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. So what's going on? There's so much going on. We just saw a picture of a bunch of raptors. Mary got a picture of a thrust puck that I think it was Mr. Chris B that hypothesized that might actually go to space, depending which booster it goes on. Yeah, what do we got? Do you want to kind of catch us up on Starship this week, Thomas?
Trying to read the tea leaves and figure out what the heck we're looking at Boca Chica is not the easiest thing in the world, but I can certainly do my best. This is what appears to be a thrust puck for a super heavy booster. Mary spotted this just this morning, I believe. And yeah, like you mentioned, depending on which booster this ends up flying on, this could be the one that goes to space if this is for booster 4. But you can see there's lots of, this is one structure or one component of a structure that will be immensely more complex than what we're looking at right now, with plumbing connections and electrical connections and engine mounts and all that stuff. But
So this is actually this photo when I saw this morning. That's like the first time that I've really gotten a good look at the thrust puck. I kind of had this idea of maybe what it looked like. What is it? What is its function?
right, so when we're talking about a thrust puck, we're talking about the type of structure, and this is probably just a component of, again, a larger structure that will do this as a system, that will channel the force from, in this case, 29 Raptor engines into the rest of the vehicle safely. You can't have a single point of force that is equal to 29 Raptors of thrust. That's how you break your tanks and explode your vehicle. So the force needs to be channeled through a structure that can carry all of that force and carry the rest of the vehicle upwards. So this thrust puck is part of that design. It's a structure. And of course, also this puck will be, like I said, in combination with other systems. You can see there's not 29 engine mounts or 29 spots to put Raptors on this thrust puck, because there's going to be other Raptors around the outside ring attached to a different structure. But this is the central, the structure handling the load from the central Raptor engines.
Saying in the back channel 9 Raptors on the thrust puck, and then the outer 20 on the side of the aft walls.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
But this is what allows the super heavy vehicle to carry the thrust of all those Raptor engines.
It keeps each Raptor from just firing itself up into the tank.
Basically, yeah. Which would of course not be a good thing.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. What else did we see? There was something that kind of threw us for a loop. There was a truck that showed up, and I think we got a little excited. There might have been a Raptor inside, but
yeah.
Yeah, what was that?
Someone identified it as a vaporizer of some kind. I forget what kind of vaporizer. What was the name for it?
It was cryogenic vaporizer is what we have in our
cryogenic vaporizer. So whatever the heck that is, it looks like some form
of cryogens.
Obviously, thank you, Stephen. It is some form of ground support equipment of some kind. It's not something that goes into the vehicle, I don't think. But you can see them unloading it from that soft cover trailer, which in the past has also been the kind of look for a Raptor transport. So we thought that they might be getting the Raptors out for Booster 3's static fire test. Turns out that is not the case. But we'll be keeping an eye out, because we do believe that Booster 3 will get Raptors, at least one Raptor, at some point to do some form of static fire testing. Of course, it has to do cryoproof as well, which is coming up no earlier than Monday. But those are the Raptor engines that we're expecting to start showing up on actual vehicles soon. And there's a lot of engines in this picture, but it's not enough for an orbital flight. They need even more, which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is one vacuum engine in there, right? Is that the one that's laying down? It's got the bigger bell?
Yeah, those vacuum engines I think are probably too big to store vertically, so they transport them horizontally. But that was the first one that Tyler Gray spotted for us in Boca Chica. And of course, all of these sea level engines. Some of those are Raptor Boosts or RB serial numbers, which are the ones that have the gimbal authority removed. And then they have the RC, or the old naming convention, which was just Raptor SN. So that's kind of changed a little bit. But those engines are the traditional gimbling ones that'll be the sea level engines on Starship and the central cluster of engines on the booster. But yeah, just look at how big those engines are. That human for scale shot is important to see these, and that's a sea level engine, a sea level Raptor, not a vacuum Raptor, which is even bigger.
One of the things that this is probably a silly thing to be surprised about, but the fact that they can stand on those engine bells and support the weight of the engine, I always thought, like, that's crazy that those engine bells are that strong that they can support the full weight of the engine itself. Okay, let's talk about the booster. Booster 3 is now at the suborbital pad, right?
Right, yeah,
Suborbital
which I
test
think we might just be calling a test site at this point,
pad.
because
Okay.
it's not going to actually fly from there. So maybe the naming scheme needs an update to Test Pad A and Test Pad B. Um, but Booster 3 out at what was the suborbital site, yeah, for some ground testing. Looks like they did an ambient test last week,
Yeah, a
or
little
this
bit of
past week.
venting there.
A little bit of venting, and now that is looks like they're complete with that. They will move into cryogenic proof testing as early as Monday, which is where they, instead of putting in ambient temperature fluids into the tanks and pressurizing that way, they will pressurize it again at cryogenic temperatures, very cold temperatures, just like it will for flight when they actually put propellants in. The cryoproof is still an inert gas, it's nitrogen, but it is cooled to the temperatures that the propellants would be at. And that'll be its next test ahead of potentially some static fire testing if they get some Raptor or Raptors installed. They can do some ground testing that way as well.
Oh man, they are really high up there on that that crane. You just see it wobbling. I mean, it's not moving that
Yeah,
much because I think this is sped up. Yeah, and it is sped up, but
a little bit.
oh
Track Starship development progress by how tall the boom lifts at
Right.
the time.
yeah,
That's
that's
wobbling
right.
far too much for my liking.
The poor
Um,
interns that get assigned to that job.
let's see. Let's check on chat here. Let's see. Okay, so Peter said you always said no static fire with BN3? Question mark.
We said no flights for Booster 3, and which was also formerly known as BN3. We know it's going to be limited to ground testing based on some Elon comments, but um, now that it sounds like they're going to actually get some Raptors out there potentially, if we see that happen, obviously that means they're going to go into static fire testing. What we're waiting for is for Raptors to actually show up at the suborbital site. That'll be the indicator whether or not that becomes part of the Booster 3 test campaign. But if it does, that's a ground test only. It's not a flight test.
Let's see. Nitro Brony said, would it be easier for them to test all the Raptor mounts by doing a static fire with all Raptors, or just one and moving it to each mount, or just do math and hope all mounts are the same?
Yeah.
Good question.
It is a good question. The question I will answer that question with is, can the suborbital site support the simultaneous firing of 29 Raptors? That answer, if I had to
Uh,
guess, is no, which means they are going to be limited to firing less than that at any given time. But
mhm.
there is the point that yeah, they could do certain engine configurations one at a time, fire a few engines at once, or even one engine at a time to check all of the different engine mounts on the puck design. Don't know if that's worth doing. They could also, like they said, do the math and hope it works out. It's a little more. There's a little more confidence behind that than hoping it works out.
Yeah.
There's lots of intense computer simulations and math that you can do to make sure that the puck will handle the loads that it needs to. But yeah, they have a couple different options for figuring out actual ground testing for some ground truth, as DOS likes to call it,
Yeah.
as far as figuring out exactly how those loads will be handled. But
Yeah.
if I had to guess, we're not going to see a 29 Raptor engines firing at once until they're actually ready to lift off from the orbital pad.
Yeah. And as far as the pads themselves, I guess part of the reason that you wouldn't want to fire all 29 on the test stand, well, part's probably because maybe it can't hold down that much thrust, and then
Mm-hmm.
the other part is it's much closer to the ground, right? Like it's a
Right.
lower profile stand. Do you know the difference in height between the
I don't know
orbital
the
and the test
number.
stand?
I don't know the number, but your point stands that if you're firing all those engines close to the ground, you increase the risk of debris getting kicked up and causing damage to the vehicle or the surrounding equipment. You also just run the risk of torching the launch mount and negating its use for future testing. So
Yeah,
that's why that orbital mount is built up bigger so that the energy from those engines can be dispersed properly.
right. Um, let's see. We got a couple more Starship related questions. See, Cactus Man HD said, The high def cactus man right there. What do you think of the big cylinders wrapped in blue foil that got delivered to Starbase?
Those looked like ground tanks, if I'm not mistaken. Just more ground support tanks. Not the big ones that we see in this shot here for the orbital site, but smaller commodity tanks. I think that's what they were, but emphasis on think. That's always a lot of the time. This has to be limited to speculation because I don't recall seeing anything labeled on it or anything like that.
Right, right. No, like what were some of the? There was one that was good. They labeled one of the Raptors Velociraptor.
Yeah.
And there's several others. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but those silly SpaceXers, man, they're funny. Let's see. Question for Gavin. Hey, Gavin.
Hey.
Has there been plans for moving methane or LOX by barge?
No, not that I'm aware of. They might want to do that if they so desire.
Yeah.
Someone already does it. If you've ever seen an SLS hot fire at Stennis, they bring in barges filled with LOX. So NASA does do that. It's something that does happen in the industry. Whether SpaceX wants to do it in the future, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Are they producing any methane or liquid oxygen on site, or is it all trucked in?
I think right now it's still all trucked in.
But
And
the
you actually
plan
see one
is,
of
right?
the air products truck in this shot, bringing in some form of commodity,
I
but
think
in
that's
this case,
nitrogen, if I'm seeing
Yeah.
that right. Let me blow this up some.
Yeah, I believe you're right. That was nitrogen, but
Okay.
I believe all the methane and liquid oxygen is still produced off-site and trucked in at this point. But that is a goal for them to do their own propellant production down the line. Yeah.
All right. And that's because they're going to need to do it on Mars. Might as well start practicing
Exactly.
here.
Exactly.
Let's see. Was there another one? Yeah, Jim Cavett asked us about venting from BN3, but we did mention that.
Right.
Let's see. What else? What other Starship goodies? What do you? Is there anything else you wanted to touch on with Starship, Thomas, or Gavin? Whatever you like.
Hey, Gavin, when are those oil rigs going to be ready?
Well, if you believe Elon, we'll see Deimos pretty soon. Although they don't seem to be doing any work on it. All the work seems to be going on Phobos. So who knows? We'll find out soon.
Yeah.
I know that's a
All
big question. We're keeping an eye on that because that could have implications for future test flights. I mean, they're working on the orbital site. You can see here that tower is getting closer and closer to being finished. That'll be a big ticket item. They're also still working on that launch table that'll sit on top of the mount that they've already built. As far as completing that part, we're also keeping a very close eye on the ground support tanks because we've seen progress on that side all but cease to the point where we're starting to wonder if there may be some holdups in that process and they may have to rework some parts of that at the orbital site. But again, this is all part of constructing this orbital launch complex, which is not a simple thing to do. And I'll actually bring in a quote from when we talked to Peter Beck on a previous NSF Live episode, talking about you want to put as much complexity in your system on the ground versus in the air on your actual vehicle. Your ground equipment can be as complicated as you want it because you build it once and it supports every flight. It's easier to maintain, easier to troubleshoot when it's on the ground and stuff like that. And you want the part that leaves the ground and goes and flies to be as simple as possible. So I think that holds true for the Starship and Super Heavy architecture as well. You could have a very complex ground equipment, including catch arms to catch your booster and stuff like that, because it means you don't need landing legs on your booster and you don't need XYZ systems on the actual vehicles.
I love this flying tent.
The strangest things lift off in Boca Chica these days.
Yeah. What was that covering up? I must have missed it. I was looking at a different screen. Where was that? What was that doing?
I don't
Covering
know.
something up? They're just like, hey,
Might
we
just
don't
be
need
part
that
of some
there
construction or some kind, but it came with wheels on it. You couldn't have just rolled it out of the way. What's the crane for?
Yeah, it's got casters. Okay, we've got a couple other questions that just popped up here. Adam Osborne, when Starship is en route to Mars, will it travel heat shield towards the sun to help limit boil-off propellant? But does that then mean it can't generate solar power?
Oh, so that's a good point. Yeah, no. So the heat shield is not going to do a whole lot as far as protecting like thermal loads for the vehicle. In fact, it will likely be easier to point either the engine section or the nose section towards the sun, so that you have less surface area in direct sunlight. And that, based on the most recent human landing system renders, which is the most recent official renders of Starship we've gotten, those solar panels are towards, the top of the vehicle. So that would allow you to generate solar power on the way, if the solar panels do end up being there across different variants of Starship. There are other ways to limit boil off. Obviously, the landing propellant gets stored in those smaller header tanks, which are easier to maintain a certain pressure and temperature in. So that helps you limit your boil off concerns. There are other ways to mitigate it, but the heat shield towards the sun is not probably how they'll handle that, because that won't even help you that much, especially because those heat shield tiles, remember, are black, so they absorb a lot of light and absorb a lot of heat that way. The better thermal protecting color would be white, which is why if you look at the human landing system variant, they're planning to paint that variant white because it won't go through an atmospheric entry, so the paint won't just burn off, and so they can take advantage of the thermal properties of painting it white to help limit boil off and other thermal loads. So,
and let's see. You guys, y'all, y'all love some Starship, and we love your questions, so keep them coming. Paul said, "Have you seen the news about the new Raptor build facility?" Oh yeah, that's an excellent thing to bring up. Yes, because that was just coming out before we went live today.
That was an Elon tweet earlier today. Elon confirming that there will be a Raptor production facility at McGregor, which is already a SpaceX facility where they currently do engine testing and things like that. Like I said, breaking ground soon on a second Raptor factory at the SpaceX Texas test site. That is referring to McGregor, not Boca Chica. He clarified later. But that would be a second in addition to the company's headquarters in Hawthorne, California, just outside Los Angeles, where they are currently building Raptor engines. And like you said, a big point here, pointing out 2 to 4 engines per day, which makes sense because the system needs a lot of engines to operate. And what's that tweet there? I haven't seen this one. Roughly 800 to 1,000 engines per year. That's about what's needed over 10 years to create the fleet to build a self-sustaining city on Mars. City itself probably takes roughly 20 years, so hopefully it is built by about 2050. I had not seen that particular tweet before we went live, and that is very interesting. And that's probably about the timeline we would expect. 2030s for the first landings, at least with people on board. And 20 years to build a self-sustaining habitat. That's not unreasonable.
No,
it might be a little optimistic, but it's not so far-fetched that I can immediately dismiss it, which is good for an Elon timeline estimate.
I mean, I guess it's somewhat self-sustaining. That's the key word there. Can you be self-sustaining where you don't, like, I'm sure you're still getting shipments of stuff and crew from Earth, but you don't need it.
Right.
Yeah, it means you've got
you might actually
greenhouses and like you've got your own forests and ecosystems under domes and all kinds of crazy stuff, where you can survive with no support from Earth. If Earth just said, we don't need you, and you can still make it.
Right.
Okay, let's see. High Peoples said, could booster 3 or 4 static fire on the orbital launch site? Well, I think not 3. Unless, I guess if they moved it over there, it could.
Right, yeah. A full engine static fire on the orbital launch mount would definitely make sense, seeing it has to withstand that force for a liftoff, so clearly it can handle it for a static fire. As long as it's only a couple seconds, that would definitely be doable. Booster 3 is currently at the suborbital site, so for that to happen, they'd have to move it. I would bet heavily that whatever the booster that makes the first orbital attempt, currently slated to be Booster 4, before that makes an actual orbital attempt, I bet we see a full engine complement static fire on the orbital launch mount for sure.
And you mentioned it has to be able to hold it down, and I thought about a tweet. I think Elon said that either it's the goal or it will be the case that Starship, with all of its engines, whenever it ignites, is going to have like a 1.5 thrust to weight ratio, meaning that the pad has to be capable of holding down half the weight of the rocket. And
correct.
that's crazy. Like holding it so it holding it up as gravity just holds it there. That's one thing. But then when it starts to push the other direction, and it has to be able to hold that force, and of course, for every second that those engines burn, that's even more force because it's burning fuel, it's becoming lighter, and it's
Yeah.
going to continue to go, or it's going to
Exactly.
want to take off. Yeah. Of course, if it's a launch scenario, then it can do that. Like, okay, time to let go, and there it goes. But if they're trying to hold it down, yeah, it's crazy the kind of things that humans can build.
Mhm.
All right, man. So many so many questions in the queue about Starship. Avenger says, why do you think they added thrust ram to Pad B?
That is an excellent question. Well, it's not for Booster 3 because they put it on the other pad. So potentially Starship 20 pre-flight testing could be
Yeah.
for the next booster, Booster 4, if they put that on a suborbital pad for any testing. Could be for Starship SN16 if they're still going to do some sort of hypersonic test with that. There's a lot of different options. Your guess is as good as mine. But that's what we're talking about. It's that ram that can simulate force upward on a vehicle or a test tank or something. There's another option. There could be a test tank coming. Who knows?
Yeah.
To simulate thrust force on a vehicle. So we'll have to wait and see.
And let's see, Meglin, 1988. Any idea what the mystery structure could be? I'm hoping you know what they're referring to.
I was hoping you would know what they're referring to. Is that it?
That's
That
the
looks...
question. I wonder. Let's see, Michael put it in the queue. I wonder if he knows.
Michael, what's your bet? I'm watching our back channel.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I know it's that, Michael. But I don't know what it is.
Oh.
It looks roughly launch table sized. I don't know if it's a component of the launch mount in some way.
I mean, that's a question.
Yeah. Maybe that means Michael doesn't know either. It is called a mystery structure for a reason, but
that's its name. That's its official name, y'all.
Yes.
It's not. I'm just kidding.
We're waiting to see what that might be for. Unfortunately, I don't have any. I don't even have wild speculation for this one.
Well, if we could just get that guy, I can't draw on the screen either. But that person right there on that lift, if we could just
Casually
ask them,
leaning against it.
I bet they know what it is.
We'll invite him on to NSF Live. We'll ask him everything.
Okay, let's see. Sikamu says, any news on hot gas thrusters?
I
There was
believe
a
the last
little
we've
bit of
heard
news.
is that they'll show up eventually, but they're not going to be on Booster 4 for the first flight. They'll be limited to cold thrusters. There are hot gas thrusters on Booster 3, the one that's currently doing ground testing. Don't know if that will include, if they'll actually test those or if they found some flaw with them that's not even worth testing. Who knows? But we're waiting to see the first use of those, and it will probably not be on the first orbital flight per some comments from Elon.
All right.
But I don't think there's any new news since then.
Let's see. Bellin 5338 said, what about the boom extension for Frankencrane? Have they done that yet? Have they extended the crane?
I believe the part for the crane showed up either yesterday or the day before. But I think they're working on extending the crane still.
Borrowing crane parts from other places. We need more crane parts.
The extension for the boom that will allow Frankencrane to lift the rest of the orbital launch tower, possibly help with some stacking operations depending on when the launch tower's own crane gets ready. That is still pending, but they're working on it, and I believe the parts for that extension have started to show up.
Very cool. Jason Thomas, why do you think the table is taking so long? Isn't it basically just a giant steel table?
I don't know. So it depends on what other systems they've got worked into that system. There's probably lots of plumbing. There might be data connections or other electrical connections. It is possibly a force-bearing structure. It might be part of the structure that has to hold down, like Stephen said, at least half of the booster and Starship's weight because of the force at engine ignition. Also has to bear some weight of just the dead weight of the vehicle sitting on the pad, fully fueled and empty. Because of all of those factors, it's not as simple. It's likely not a very simple structure, which is why it might be taking some time to finish preparing it for installment.
Toxic big fat baby said, can the launch tower and launch table survive the Super Heavy and Starship? Oh, RUD. So the question is, could the launch table survive a RUD?
Let's hope we never find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not, if I had to guess. The idea is to avoid that instead. I don't think there's going to be much that's going to survive a blast of a fully fueled Starship and Super Heavy, which is why they're going to do their best to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, let's avoid that. And I believe this will actually be our last Starship question, and because we got other stuff, y'all. There's other good stuff going on in space.
Sure.
Patrick Gilmore, do we have any indication on what Booster 3's engine chill vent will look like? 9 engine chill plumes seems like a lot, and upwards of 32 seems too many to fit. Oh, I see. Yeah, like how many venting spots will there be around it?
Yeah, so on Starship, we believe it was 1 per engine when they had up to 3. We called it the tri-vent. If I had to guess, that will still, like, each engine will need to vent during engine chill, but those vents could be combined out of the engines into less than 32 vents that we actually see coming out of the vehicle. There can be some plumbing involved to get those vents to the outside, especially think of all the engines that are in the center of the vehicle. That vent, unless they just vented straight down, in which case it wouldn't even be that visible. Yeah, so we don't really know what that will look like until, of course, we see it happen. Which is what a lot of Texas Tank watching is. Wait and watch it, and then once we see something happen for the first time, we go, oh, we can figure out what that was, and we go from there. We don't often know things ahead of time.
Yeah, and that's why you too should subscribe to the NASA Spaceflight YouTube channel so you can watch along with us and find out what the heck is going on. Okay, I know I said that was the last one, but I just noticed a Starship related super chat, and I don't want to ignore those that decide to try to throw money at us. You know, what am I supposed to do? Dennis says, what do you make of SpaceX already having used up 220 of their 300 hours? Oh yeah, 220 of 300 hours of road closures. Is that what the rule is? They can only do 300 hours of road closures?
I have seen that referenced a couple times. I don't know enough about how firm that like rule is. If they reach 299 hours and they need to have a 2-hour road closure, does that get shut down automatically, or can SpaceX work with local authorities to come up with a way to do that? I'm not sure if I'd place too much weight on that.
Yeah, it's just like in the past, there's been times that they've extended the road closures, or they've had road closures on the weekends, even though the county said no, we're not doing that on the weekend. They've worked with the local authorities there to make to do what they need to do. It's sometimes they don't. Obviously, they don't try to close the roads every weekend or anything, but there are times that they really want to get something done, and then I think they have a fairly good relationship with the local authorities there, so they work together to get all that stuff. All right, let's see. All right, let's take a breather. Starship. Don't worry, there will be plenty of Starship coverage on the NASA Spaceflight YouTube channel and NASASpaceflight.com. Chris B has been doing like a roundup article each week, so keep your eyes peeled for that, for the Starship fan on the go. So China just conducted an EVA. Like, it seems like it was just yesterday that they launched, and they've already completed an EVA.
Yeah, so this is something that was definitely interesting to watch. For the second time ever in the Chinese space program, we had a extravehicular activity, or a spacewalk, this time outside of the new Chinese space station. The previous one was on the Shenzhou 7 mission, which was just a spacewalk outside of their own orbiting space capsule. I believe we have some images, Michael, of
I think
the
he's
EVA
probably. I think
happening.
I might have caught him off guard by switching topics so fast.
We'll show those, but yeah, they have done one spacewalk in the past, and there we go. And now they have done their second one. The first spacewalk only lasted about 20 minutes or so. This particular spacewalk was more traditional in length as far as spacewalks go. This lasted about 6 hours or so. And this
What
was
were they doing?
outside
Did you already
the.
say that? I'm sorry. What was
They
the
were
goal?
doing a couple of different things. I know they set up a camera during the spacewalk that was kind of stowed from the module. So right now, the Chinese space station is just one module. It's the Tianyi core module that will eventually be built upon. And there's also a cargo spacecraft and a crew spacecraft docked to it right now. So when the module was launched, there was a camera that was in like a stowed launch configuration that they went out and configured. They also prepared the robotic arm for operations. In fact, they actually used that robotic arm to get one of these spacewalkers, one of the taikonauts, around during the spacewalk, kind of like we do on the International Space Station. An astronaut can actually strap into the Canadarm2 and use that to move around during a spacewalk. They did the same on their spacewalk. I don't remember any other specifics. There wasn't a whole lot of information as usual from the Chinese space program, but we do know that they had a completely successful EVA and the first on the new space station, the second ever in China's spaceflight history, and that is a big part of the first expedition to the first mission onto the new space station.
Yeah, I think we have a render of the robotic arm. Is it just a render that we've got?
Yeah, China did put out a render. It'll show what it looks like when the astronaut is riding around on the robotic arm on a spacewalk. And again, it's very similar to things that we do on the International Space Station. There you have it. There's like a foothold that the taikonaut in this case would be secured to, and the robotic arm was controlled by a third crew member. There were two taikonauts actually outside on the EVA, and a third member, actually the commander of the mission, was inside the space station operating the robotic arm during the course of the spacewalk. And in this render, you can also see to the very right side, you can see the crew vehicle, the Shenzhou 12 spacecraft, which kind of similar to a Soyuz-looking spacecraft. It is loosely developed based on help from Russia from the Soyuz spacecraft design. And then to the left of that is the actual core module of the space station itself.
Right on. Anything else worth bringing up? I know we don't always get a whole lot of information out of the Chinese space program. I think it's super exciting that they're doing it. I mean, they seem to be moving really quickly. They already got a couple people on board their space station. They're doing spacewalks. It looks like they've already got a Starlink terminal on there.
Yeah, they've got their communications hooked up. They actually recently also launched a new data relay satellite that is what that dish actually communicates with. Basically, their version of the TDRSS network that NASA uses. So they're working on that as well. I believe they have a second spacewalk planned for this expedition before this particular crew returns to Earth. It won't be continuously crewed like the ISS currently is right now, at least just yet. They are working on, they'll send a crew up, that crew will come back before the next crew launches. But they are planning for another crew to launch before the end of the year. And that crew might conduct their own spacewalks as well.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. That's there you go. That's China, and I think, yeah, we're getting dangerously close to an hour and a half. We don't have, it's not a hard cutoff at 4:30, or well, that's my time, but I wanted to get through everything, and we just had the cargo dragon from CRS-22 return last night, and I figured that'd give Gavin a good chance to jump back in here because it's just been so much Starship talk. Not a whole lot about boats, but yeah. So who wants to talk about when did it depart? You know, there was all these delays. It was. I just want to. I know I was going to throw it to you guys, but I just want to say that they teased me. It teased me. I went out to the port. I got pictures of Ghost Searcher with the fast boats on board. Like, oh, they're splashing down in the Atlantic, and it's starting to look like that the site they've chosen is just off the Cape. Oh, I can't wait! This is awesome! I can't wait. And then a certain hurricane was coming through and ruined everything.
Well, what I was worried about before we get to the boat, I was hoping that we'd finally get a plasma trail visible from here in Florida,
Yes.
because when it's during the daylight, you can't really see it, and when it's in the Gulf of Mexico, actually there was a webcam, like a beach cam, that caught it last
Yeah.
night. A really
Yep.
cool shot of the plasma trail, but we were hoping to see that from Florida as it passed
Yeah.
over and then splashed down to the east of us.
Oh,
But
yeah.
no, back into the Gulf we go.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a spot picked out. There's a condo on the river near me, and I've already talked to some people that live there. Like they're totally fine with me going out there, like behind theirs, like right on the river, and try to photograph the plasma trail and stuff. Still gonna wait.
One day it'll happen. It'll be
Yeah.
really cool.
And then I'm also, I want Ghost Searcher to get get their day in the sun. I know that Ghost Searcher was used to pick up DM1 Dragon,
Yep.
and here's that clip. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the best footage. Like I know some photographer friends have caught like streaks of it going across the sky, but that doesn't give you as good of an idea of just how long it takes, how long is it visible. Like this looks
Right.
like, oh man, I want to see this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Go Navigator had been stationed over in Tampa since when? Gavin, do you have that off the top of your head?
It's been at least a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had undocking from the International Space Station on the morning of the 8th. Splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico was 11:30 p.m. last night. That was just off the coast of Tallahassee. It was then covered by Go Navigator, which was on station, which was one of SpaceX's 2 Dragon recovery ships.
The one that gets all the action.
Yeah, it is the one that gets all the action, but
We
that's
love you,
just
Go
sometimes
Navigator.
how it goes. Yeah, sometimes just how it goes. Dragon is now sailing back towards Port Canaveral for unloading. First thing this morning, SpaceX released a photo of Dragon on the recovery ship after it was successfully water.
And they grabbed some of the priority science items out of there, and then like with a helicopter, right? There was actually, I don't know how quickly we can grab that, but there was like a flight tracker that showed where the helicopter had flown out to where Go Navigator was, and landed on the nifty little helipad that both Navigator and Searcher have. Picked up some. I think we might be able to show it to you, or at least show you the helicopter. Yeah, and picked up some of the science items that are time critical and flew them back. They came straight back to Kennedy, right?
Yeah, so the helicopter did 1 or 2 runs. So literally, as soon as Dragon is plucked out of the water from the recovery ship, helicopter lands, crew on the ship immediately start unloading the priority cargo. It's loaded into this helicopter, and they fly it straight to Kennedy Space Center, where Kennedy Space Center released some photos last night. Literally, they take it out of the helicopter onto trucks. It goes straight to the facility. I think they put out some photos again this morning of some scientists already processing some blood samples, I think, that came down.
Oh, wow.
So literally, they get straight on it. It is time critical cargo. That is the capability they've got with the new CRS contract, where they're using ships with helipads so they can land and take it off there and then.
Did you say they took 2 trips?
I think they did two trips, yeah.
So now is that flying all the way back to Kennedy each time, or
they
do
have
they
2 helicopters for this, as far as I'm aware.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, like, how fast are these helicopters? Okay, yeah. I'm just a photographer, y'all. I listen to the smart people. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Dragon
fantastic
on
shot.
Although it's a great shot, they are also showing the less burnt side of Dragon, I think.
Oh, is that right?
I think because Dragon does not enter, the heat shield isn't perfectly square against the direction of travel. They kind of tilt it a little bit for some lift generating purposes and to reduce
Yeah.
the loads that like the G-forces that the capsule experiences. I think if we saw the other side of the capsule, it would be pretty much black,
Yeah.
and look more like that toasted marshmallow look that we get from a lot of the dragons coming back. But yeah, that's Dragon back on Go Navigator.
Yeah. And Gavin, I know you love it when people put you on the spot and ask for an ETA. When should we expect Go Navigator to return with Dragon to Port Canaveral?
I don't have it off the top of my head. I'm gonna go out and say Tuesday or Wednesday. But don't
All
hold me
right,
to that.
there you
at
have
all,
it.
'cause that's-
There you have it.
Oh,
folks.
you heard that? Hold it to him. Tuesday or Wednesday? No.
Yeah,
Don't hold it.
no, I think like the internet cut out. He said, "Hold me to it." Definitely hold me to it.
I'll tweet that.
Yes. Oh, yeah. There you go. Thank you for that arrow. Make sure you're following Gavin because he's always on top of it with the fleet stuff and telling
I
us.
don't know where the
when to
following
show
button. I
up.
think I need more arrows to tell me where to click.
Yeah, where
and
is
actually
this
follow
following
Gavin.
Yeah. I don't know. And yeah, you know what? Maybe let's see. Yeah, maybe that's a good time to wrap. Do you want to show a couple SLS stacking images because SLS is getting me. SLS is getting real close, and I'm like, when are you gonna let me in? I was in the VAB for the boosters after they were completely stacked, and that was incredible. And I just can't wait to see that core in there. They've got the interim cryogenic propulsion state. What is the ICPS?
You got it. Exact. That is exactly right. Nicely
Just photographer. Yeah, I can't wait to get in there and see this thing fully stacked. I wonder if they'll wait until Orion is on top before they have people come in and take a look. I'd be okay with that. I'd be all right with Orion being on top, having it being fully stacked. But yeah, you'll have photos from me, and we'll I'm sure have articles. Philip Sloss is our resident SLS guy. Yeah, so that's going to be super exciting. Is there anything you wanted to add about this, Thomas? Anything that you know?
I know just actually either last night or this morning, Orion rolled out to the launch abort system facility. So the Orion spacecraft, the service module, and the crew capsule are going to get integrated with the launch abort tower. And that entire stack will be what goes on top of an Orion stage adapter on top of the ICPS stage that you see here. And that will complete the SLS Block 1 stack for Artemis 1. So we are getting very, very close. I believe there is a fair amount of testing that happens between the stacking that we've seen finish up the last couple of days, and when Orion gets mated, I believe there might even be like a weight simulator that goes on first before they actually put the actual spacecraft on. I don't remember exact details, but there's some time before Orion will actually be ready. But they are moving towards completing this stack later this year, and they're working towards a launch attempt that is still technically no earlier than this year, no earlier than November. There's some schedule margin there that will probably push it into early next year, but that hasn't happened yet. They're still working on work 2 schedules, and like you said, SLS is getting closer, and we're all keeping a very close eye on that as well. So cool to bring up some pictures quick of milestone hit this week.
Yeah. And before we close out, I do want to acknowledge those that have left us super chats because let's be honest, the stuff that we're doing, it does cost some money, and so we don't want to forget about y'all that are able and willing to throw a few bucks our way. Moldy Space Adventures with the hashtag Thomas Fan Club. Jim Cavett, happy weekend. Thanks for all your hard work. NSF, thank you. Musical Wolves actually had a question. Will Branson and Bezos need to be quarantined prior to their short flight time? My guess is going to be no. Any disagreement with that?
Nope.
Blazemonger just said Mighty Servant 1, Dutch prowess supporting SpaceX. I think that was from back when we were talking about Mighty Servant 1. Thomas Anfang said thoughts on SpaceX's internal no earlier than 2031 for Mars. I hope they
I
make
have
it.
not. I've also heard that, but it's not confirmed, and I think that's so far out that I wouldn't worry about that date too much right now.
Yeah, right. And then Musical Wolves threw a couple more dollars, asking to show the plasma trail. I think that was at the time that we were like right before we did that. So I think we got you covered on that. And then how do you say this name? I'll just go with Gotham. How far is Phobos and Deimos from the nearest coast? Oh, they're like right in a harbor,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, one's in Pascagoula, the other one is literally in the port of Brownsville. It's a
Yeah. There you go. All right, yeah. So that's going to do it for us today. We appreciate you stopping by, watching, supporting the stream, even if you're just watching. We appreciate you too. With me today, I've had Gavin, Mr. Cornwell, SpaceX Fleet on Twitter. Make sure you're following him. You want to give out your Patreon? I know you've got a Patreon out there to help you do what you do.
Yeah. I think Mod's put in chat. Yeah, there it is. Thank you, Harry. Awesome.
Yeah, there you go. It's patreon.com/SpaceXFleet. And you can, that'll get you into a nifty Discord. I'm in there too, y'all. Where Gavin we talk shop about ships and stuff. Talk shop about ships.
Yeah, the 411 on the latest.
Yeah, and at any time, at 5 a.m. when like I'll have my first alarm set for a possible booster return. I'll wake up at 5 a.m. my time. Okay, that's like 9 a.m. Gavin's time, and I'll be like, Gavin, where's the booster at? And if he hasn't tweeted already, then that's what I do. Yeah, so show him a little bit of support, y'all. We appreciate it. And then over here on my other side, Mr. Thomas Burghardt, thank you.
Always a pleasure to come on and talk space. I'll also take before you disintroduce yourself, whatever that's called, outro yourself. Stephen Marr also has a Patreon that I know you can go check out and support his work. So, or not a storefront. Excuse me. I guess it's not
both. I have both. Yeah.
Oh, you have both. There you go. So you just should support Stephen and his work as well.
Yeah, if you want a fancy rocket photo hanging on your wall, I have spacecoaststeve.com. That'll direct you right to my smug mug
Or
page.
if you want like a mouse pad or something
like
that.
There you go.
This is one of Stephen's photos. So
you know what?
I just realized I had to sit on my desk. Figured I should bring it out.
That's awesome. That photo right there. So I was doing the Friday Fest here in Cocoa Beach. They have Friday Fest every third Friday of every month. Where vendors can like sell their goodies and stuff. And a lady that works on the GPS satellites came up to the booth and asked if I had any photos of GPS satellites launching. And I was like, because one had launched, I think the day prior. Of course, that's too soon to be able to get a print made or whatever. And I was like, I think I have one from the last one that launched on a Falcon 9, and that was the one. I had some on hand, and so she picked one of those up. That was just super cool. One of the coolest parts about doing that, the Friday Fest thing, is some of the industry people that come by. And like, I talked to a guy that works for SpaceX. I talked to a guy that used to work on the shuttle, all that kind of stuff. Like the Space Coast is super cool for those opportunities. Yeah, so last but certainly not least, our members. We thank you so much, because without you, without your ongoing support, I don't know where we'd be. During downtimes when there's not a whole lot to stream and stuff, our members really help us out, keeping us afloat, and they get some cool perks. Like they get access to our Discord, our special Discord, to chat with. I mean, it's literally hundreds now, right? Of people that are in that Discord that just talk, space nerd stuff. There's all kinds of channels, to talk about whatever you like in the space sector. So if you're not a member and you want to be into something like that, consider becoming a member. I think that's it. Anybody else? Anybody got anything else? All right.
Yeah, stay tuned for Virgin Galactic launch coverage tomorrow. That'll be our next live event. And of course, stay tuned for more Boca Chica videos and stuff like that. But just guys, thanks for a great show. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see y'all later.
Liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCP chamber pressure looks good. Following up. Roger, roll, Atlantic.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight down, SE off. Bring in, SE off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.